The Taira clan, who would one day rule Japan, did not begin their story in the grand palaces of Kyoto or among the noble courts. Instead, their origins lay on the restless waters of the Seto Inland Sea, a region that shaped their destiny. Here, the Taira mastered the art of seafaring, turning the inland sea into both a vital trade artery and a stronghold for pirates and adventurers. While the Minamoto clan built their power on horseback, the Taira forged their empire on the waves, using ships to dominate trade and control movement across western Japan's coasts and islands. Their maritime focus allowed them to levy taxes on commerce, transport troops with unmatched speed, and extend their influence far beyond what landlocked rivals could ever hope to achieve. Shipbuilding, navigation, and seamanship became the lifeblood of the Taira, skills passed down through generations and woven into the very fabric of their clan's identity and strategy. Legendary leaders like Taira Kiyomori learned the value of the sea firsthand, using their maritime expertise to influence national politics and shift the balance of power in Japan with dramatic, sometimes devastating results. The Taira's rise was not a sudden conquest, but a patient, calculated consolidation of maritime routes and coastal strongholds, slowly weaving a network of power across the inland sea. For the Taira, the deck of a ship was as familiar as a saddle to a samurai. True power in an island nation like Japan was born from the sea, not the land. In many ways, they were pirate kings who rose from the waves to become emperors in all but name, forever changing the course of Japanese history. The Taira's naval focus was both strategic and necessary, rooted in their western base around the Seto Inland Sea. Rather than compete with the Minamoto's cavalry, they seized control of trade routes linking Japan to China, especially through ports like Owada no Tamari, modern Kobe. This trade brought immense wealth, ceramics, silks, copper coins, fueling their political ambitions. By taxing goods and protecting commerce, they built a network of loyalty reaching the imperial court. The region's geography, complex coastlines and islands, made naval power essential for military control. Ships let them move troops and supplies quickly, enforce their will, and respond to threats with unmatched speed. While others perfected mounted archery, the Taira mastered amphibious warfare and maritime logistics. Their power was mobile and far-reaching, projecting force from Kyushu to the capital. They didn't just use the sea, they weaponized it, building an empire on water. This unique approach was the key to their initial dominance. Taira no Kiyomori transformed his clan from sea lords to Japan's dominant power. He used naval strength and commercial wealth to infiltrate Kyoto's court politics. Strategic alliances and victories in the Hogan and Heiji rebellions gave him the upper hand. The Taira's ability to move troops by sea proved decisive in these conflicts. Kiyomori expanded shipbuilding and developed Owada no Tomari into a major trade hub, making the clan's wealth independent of old aristocrats. By the 1170s he was the grandfather of Emperor Antoku and controlled the government from behind the scenes. The Taira were no longer just pirates, they were the de facto rulers of Japan. But their empire built on water would face its greatest test at sea. The Taira's dominance bred resentment, sparking the Genpei War in 1180. Early fighting favored the Minamoto, masters of land warfare, who pushed the Taira back in key battles. After defeat at Fujigawa, the Taira's hold on Kyoto crumbled. Facing disaster, they used their fleet to evacuate the capital, taking Emperor Antoku and the imperial regalia west. This mass escape, impossible for any other clan, turned their fleet into a floating court and fortress. The war shifted from land to sea, with the Taira ruling from their ships in the inland sea. The Minamoto established a new capital in Kamakura, while the Taira launched counterattacks from their naval bases. Their fleet became their kingdom and last hope for survival. The conflict was now a war of two governments, one on land, one afloat. The stage was set for the greatest naval battles in Japanese history. The Taira's fate would be decided on the waves. Forced into a maritime war, the Taira revolutionized Japanese shipbuilding. They adapted traditional vessels into large, robust warships, floating fortresses propelled by oarsmen and designed for archers. Their ships could carry soldiers and even horses, enabling amphibious assaults. The Taira's fleet was standardized, well-organized, and manned by experienced sailors from the inland sea. Ships were often linked together in battle, creating stable platforms for massed archery. Their navy included command ships, troop carriers, and scout boats, allowing complex tactics and communication. The Minamoto, by contrast, scrambled to assemble a navy from fishing boats and pirates. The Taira's institutional knowledge of naval warfare gave them a decisive edge. Their fleet was more than boats. It was an integrated military system built to dominate the waves. This innovation would shape Japanese naval warfare for generations. The Battle of Yashima in 1184 was a turning point that showcased the Taira clan's naval supremacy and their mastery of amphibious warfare. Their ships, sleek and formidable, dominated the inland sea, making them nearly untouchable by conventional means. Driven from the mainland by relentless Minamoto advances, the Taira fortified the island of Yashima, transforming it into a floating fortress. Their fleet, anchored tightly along the rocky shore, created an imposing barrier that seemed impossible to breach. The Minamoto, led by the brilliant Yoshitsune, knew they couldn't win a direct naval fight. Outnumbered and outgunned at sea, they turned to cunning and deception, planning a bold and unconventional assault. Under cover of a violent storm, Yoshitsune's cavalry made a daring crossing to Shikoku, braving treacherous waters and fierce winds. They then approached Yashima from the rear, catching the Taira completely off guard. Bonfires blazed along the shoreline, creating the illusion of a massive army descending upon the Taira. In the confusion and fear, the Taira panicked, abandoning their palace and scrambling desperately for their ships, leaving everything behind. The Minamoto pressed their advantage, launching a relentless attack into the shallows. Arrows rained down on the fleeing Taira, who struggled to regroup as chaos erupted all around them. Amidst the turmoil, the battle is remembered for Nasu no Yoichi's legendary archery feat, shooting a fan from a Taira ship with a single arrow, a moment that became immortalized in Japanese lore. Despite the drama and spectacle, the Minamoto's ruse worked perfectly. The Taira lost their last major land base, forced to abandon their stronghold and flee to the open sea. Now, the once mighty Taira court was truly adrift, surviving only on their fleet, with no safe harbor left to call home. The Minamoto had turned the Taira's greatest strength, the sea, into a deadly trap, cutting off their escape and isolating them from any hope of recovery. The Taira's empire was now entirely afloat, with nowhere left to run. Their fate was sealed, and the endgame of this epic conflict was finally near. The Genpei War's climax came at Dan no Ura in 1185, a massive naval battle fought in the turbulent waters of the Shimonoseki Strait. This confrontation would decide the fate of two great clans and the future of Japan itself. The Taira, outnumbered but possessing superior ships and experienced sailors, pinned their hopes on the shifting tides to turn the battle in their favor. Their strategy was bold, relying on their deep knowledge of the sea. Early in the fight, the current favored the Taira, and their archers unleashed a relentless storm of arrows, dominating the Minamoto from afar and forcing them to keep their distance. But Minamoto commander Yoshitsune, quick to adapt, ordered his warriors to target the Taira's oarsmen and helmsmen. With deadly precision, they crippled the enemy ships, leaving them unable to maneuver. As the tide literally turned, the Minamoto fleet surged forward, encircling the Taira and cutting off any hope of escape. The sea, once an ally, now became a trap. Chaos erupted as ships crashed together and warriors fought hand-to-hand on blood-soaked decks. The Taira's formation collapsed in the confusion, and panic spread among their ranks. Facing total defeat and unwilling to be captured, Taira leaders chose death. The noble Tomomori leapt into the sea, while Lady Ni, in a final act of loyalty, drowned herself and the young Emperor Antoku, ending a dynasty in a single moment. The sacred sword, one of Japan's imperial treasures, slipped from their grasp and was lost forever to the depths, a symbol of their vanished power. In a single afternoon, the Taira's mighty naval empire was utterly destroyed, their ships left as burning wrecks or abandoned on the silent water. Their power, built on the sea, was swallowed by it, as if the ocean itself had turned against them and claimed its due. The Minamoto emerged triumphant, sailing beneath new banners as Japan's undisputed rulers, their victory echoing across the land and sea. The age of the Taira was over, their banners faded and their ships empty, but their story and legacy would endure in legend and memory. The sea had given them everything, and in the end, it had taken it all away, leaving only silence and the memory of a vanished empire. The Taira's defeat ended their era, but their impact on Japanese warfare was lasting. They were the first to make naval power central to statecraft, showing that fleets could control territory and generate wealth. Their innovations, large archery platforms, linked ships, amphibious tactics, became models for future commanders. Even in defeat, they taught rivals like the Minamoto the value of naval strength. The Genpei War forced Japan's warriors to master the sea, not just the land. Minamoto Yoritomo, founder of the Kamakura shogunate, maintained naval forces to guard the coasts, a direct legacy of the Taira threat. The Taira proved that an island nation's fate depended on the waves. Their story became a lesson for all future rulers. Power in Japan required command of the sea. The need for a strong navy was now ingrained in Japanese strategy. The Taira's naval revolution changed Japan forever. The Taira's story is the origin of organized naval warfare in Japan. By controlling the inland sea, they built a mobile empire and set a precedent for linking military might with economic power. Their innovations shaped responses to later threats, like the Mongol invasions, and inspired future naval leaders. Daimyo like Nobunaga and Hideyoshi built on Taira tactics, creating powerful fleets to unify Japan. The Taira's focus on maritime trade laid the groundwork for Japan's future as a trading nation. Their legacy echoes in the modern Japanese Navy. Though the clan vanished, their influence endured. They taught the samurai that the sea was a highway to power. The Taira fundamentally altered Japan's military history. Their rise and fall remain a cornerstone of Japanese identity. For an island nation, the sea is destiny, and the Taira were its first true masters.